everyone. Thanks so much for beginning to join in. Good to see all of you. Hi Amrita, how are you? So today we're chatting with Vandana Mohan, who is a top wedding planner. There's nobody who doesn't know who she is, so I'm really excited to be chatting with her today about all things wedding, about all things weddings post-COVID, and also what the wedding industry is really going through right now, because I'm sure they're very affected by the current circumstances. And I'm really excited to chat with her, a candid chat. She's the most loveliest person, and very frank views on the wedding and the wedding world. So I'll wait for her to join in. If you have any questions, leave them in the live. I know there have been people who've DM'd me today. They're very excited about the live today, so thank you for that. I'll just wait for her to join in and then we can get started. Hope you all are doing well. How's everyone this semi-lockdown treating you? I hope you're staying safe. So of course, people in the wedding industry, people who do gifting, and you know, anyone that's maybe a wedding planner would be affected at this point. So let me just add her in. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Sean?
How are you? So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Anytime, anytime. I am just so honored, and I am so excited to be here talking to you. You know, when I look at you, I really go down memory lane. I look at you and I think of Sharmila and of all the wonderful times we've had together. So big shout out to you and thank you. All yours.
How sweet. Really, really sweet of you to be here. And I'm more excited than you, I think, because everyone, of course, I don't even need to introduce you because everyone knows you in the wedding industry. And of course, you've really, really done some wonderful weddings that we all know about and some amazing work. So thank you again for joining me today. And I'm excited to chat with you about weddings. And I know at this point it's tough during COVID. I don't know what's going to be next. But I'm going to start by just asking you to tell us a little bit about your wedding design company, even though, like I said, an introduction isn't necessary.
No, you can hear me? Am
Yes.
I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, to tell you about the wedding design company, it's 19 years old. My parent company being Backstage Productions completed 30 years in September last year. And the journey has been wonderful, from just doing corporate events, which was Backstage Productions. It was by chance that I got to do a wedding. Weddings were nowhere on my horizon. According to me, only florists or, you know, those kind of people, only florists did weddings, or what we call tent houses, or in Bombay you call decorators. So I wasn't really, it wasn't my goal to do weddings, but 20 years later, here I am, and all I do is design and plan weddings. The journey has been incredible. It started off doing a corporate client's daughter's wedding, and one thing led to another, and we got asked for another wedding, and then we got asked for another wedding, until I think I was telling somebody, till the first 5 weddings I didn't take this seriously because I just thought it was a fluke, you know, what people were asking us to design weddings. But when I think back now, because, you know, we did a lot of our stuff on instinct. We did a lot of our things spontaneously. You know, the whole thought process of how you kids today think about how you plan, how you design, and how you cultivate and curate what you want to do. We were a generation of the 70s and 80s that kind of took a lot of risks. We kind of just jumped into things. And that's what I did with the wedding business. And when I think about it, I think now I can understand why. I understand why, because in the event space, the way I did my events were basically luxury events. So we did the first Chanel show in India. We brought we worked with Ferragamo, Gucci, Tod's, just name all the brands. We kind of worked with them. And I learned and cut my teeth on luxury, thanks to these brands. And I brought a lot of that into my corporate events. So, for example, My corporate events always looked beautiful. My table settings, my flowers were incredible. The way I did my lighting, the way I did the linen, or way, how the welcome was done. It wasn't that typical cut and dry, corporate. So maybe my client had a little bit of faith in me and said, if she can do this well, I'm sure I can hand over my daughter's wedding to her. And it turned out to be quite fantastic. And from then on, it's been a journey which has been incredible, and I've loved every minute of it, and I'm very passionate about what I do.
You are, absolutely, and I remember chatting with you about it as well. And you can tell how passionate you are about each and every detail when it comes to the end event. So I want to ask you, of course, you are responsible for planning and executing some of the best weddings, and like you mentioned, some of the best luxury brands and events. So is there any one that stood out for you, really, something that's really memorable, and you think this, when you think back, you're like, this is something that I really, now I know this is something I need to do and want to do?
It's difficult to say which one is the one that's closest to my heart, because, I really treat them very much like my own. But the one thing that it's been like a landmark and kind of set the way our company was going forth, was the first wedding I did overseas. The first wedding that I did, which was a destination wedding in none other than the most fabulous city of Italy, Florence.
Wow.
And it was for 700 people. And that one stands out simply because it was not just a learning, it was a huge learning. And also the fact that you realize when you were working with people from another country or from the West, where everything is always thought of as a notch higher. We always look at yourself and say, look at those guys, they do it so well. And you stood back and looked at your own event and said, you know what? Not bad. We guys also know how to do this. And that gave me a tremendous amount of confidence, a tremendous amount of boost to, nurture the whole destination wedding situation further. So yeah, that's been quite a memorable one. Yeah.
Awesome. And of course, like you said, you started earlier, and it's so nice to have your first wedding as an international one. Because
no, my first wedding wasn't international. My first wedding was actually in India. And I did many here. The reason I'm saying this one stands out because it was my first international wedding, and I remember it very clearly. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
But you have done so many different weddings, and I have to mention that right now I think everyone is watching this Netflix show, and everyone's only talking about weddings, matchmaking, and family dynamics. But I want to ask you, have you seen a big change in weddings over time? In terms of trends, has there been a lot more, I don't know, every person and family does it differently. So what are your thoughts? Have wedding trends changed drastically?
Well, let me just say that the fact that there's a trend that today most people use a wedding planner or a wedding designer is a big trend. Yes. Back in the day when I started doing weddings, there was no concept of somebody who would design a wedding. It was always given to somebody who did the flowers, or somebody who did your, tentage, or somebody brought in the furniture, but there was no design aspect to a wedding. And I think I can, kind of pat myself on the back to say that we brought in a whole concept of design into weddings. And I have seen it change tremendously. The acceptance today to hire a wedding planner, to hire a wedding design person, somebody who can coordinate all the hospitality, the planning, is now not just a trend. It's become a way of life. Every family does it. So yeah. I've seen the trend. I've seen it change. And the other trend is, there are trends that are done every season. I'm asked, what is the trend for this season and what's going to happen? It's like you guys, the millennials, and now what they call a Gen X or Gen Y, or whatever you guys call each other, is that each one is thinking differently. I can see from the time when I started weddings, when everything just needed to look pretty and it needed to look nice. Today, the youngsters are saying, how does this relate to me? How does it reflect my personality? Does it talk about me? Is it my story? So you have all kinds of things happening, and you have to dive deeper into your subject, as it were, to be able to please the new generation. So yeah, that's a huge trend change, definitely.
That's so true, because I see a lot of my friends very involved in their planning process, and it's no longer just left to their parents. So it's like, I want it this way, and these are my colors. So very true. I'm going to ask you this. I know that there can't just be one, But are there any particular challenges that you can mention while really planning a wedding? Is there just one that you can pinpoint, which is a real challenge when it comes to planning weddings today? And of course, post-COVID, will it be more challenging to really plan destination weddings?
I always call a wedding planner a crisis manager. So, so when I think one of the biggest challenges that any design person or planning person has, of course, is client expectations, but that's what we are there for, to manage those. Yeah. But besides that, I think it's also the fact that, when you're planning a wedding, you are actually managing every moment of those 5 or 6 hours. So time management is crucial. And I always say my most difficult weddings are the sunset weddings. Every bride wants to hit that sunset. The barat is always late. The barat is always dancing for 3 or 4 hours. And that girl or that boy are panicking because he's promised her that I'm going to give you your sunset wedding. And it's very rare that you touch that moment because of timelines, so those become a little challenging when you're trying to manage, but it's all in the fun, and it becomes tremendously exhausting after a while trying to get the youngsters manage their time. But in COVID, I think one of the things that we will not have to manage too much is the time, because we are only doing 50 people weddings and the barats are much smaller. So I suppose the girl can get her sunset wedding. But COVID has brought its own challenges, and it's brought, it's come back with, us reinventing ourselves. And we are, along with our clients, actually learning how to deal with the challenges that are presented to us on a daily basis. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to ask that next. Coming to COVID, I think, like I have had friends who've had engagements, like you mentioned, 50 people, 40 people, and just at home. So do you see a lot of the wedding trends changing to smaller, more intimate groups and maybe just more home functions?
Shan, I don't know if you've seen on our Insta page, we run a campaign called Home is Where the Heart Is, which is really that, you make any place your home. And most of the events today, most of the weddings are really intimate weddings that are going to happen. And they're happening at people's homes. Of course, they're going into venues which are smaller. The whole trend, remember that the most successful businesses are the ones that are the most fluid and change with time, and which reinvent themselves. And we in the wedding industry have had to do just that. We've had to all reinvent ourselves from the big fat Indian wedding, which we are all used to. A 50 people is something that we've never done. We've never even estimated for it. When we do small weddings, we say 200 people, So yes, it is reinvention. Our design language has changed. Our design language is centered around where the bride and groom are going to sit. And that backdrop has become the most important. The mandap has always been important, but now it gains even more importance because you're going to be just a handful of people who are going to be looking at this mandap. So every detail has to be absolutely perfect. We are managing social distancing. We are managing how to put that into a design and not make it look like a hospital, to make sure that, they look beautiful. So our design language has changed. Our planning has changed. We've had to plan better. We've got to be more cautious. And more than anything else today, Shan, we have to be more responsible. I think that's another thing that's been put on our shoulders, is that we have to be more responsible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like a lot of my friends say, I've been chatting with two who to get married this year. They say that now my poor parents, because their list was 300-400 people, they're down to my list of 50. So I think that it's like the pros and cons, are we in this situation. But I also want to ask you, a lot of, international destinations were, very, very Indian wedding friendly. And I think a lot of places were, people, like there's a trend. So in a year, 5 weddings would happen in the same international destinations. Will this be difficult still post-COVID? What are your thoughts? Would a lot move to India now?
Shan, I think international travel is going to be restricted till the skies open up, till there's a vaccine, people are comfortable to travel and fly. I don't think those destinations are coming back soon. But what is happening is that the Indian destinations are becoming popular. And what is becoming popular is the fact that places that you can drive to. So Udaipur has become popular with the whole of Gujarat, or from Delhi you can drive to Agra, you can drive to Mussoorie, from Bombay you can go to Panchgani, you can go beyond to Pune, you know, any Nasik, any of the places where you can easily drive. That's number one. Secondly, also the fact that many locations, many hotels, many havelis, many boutique hotels were always lost the race as far as weddings were concerned, because they didn't have enough rooms, because a wedding always wanted 100 rooms or 200 rooms. Today, you have that many choices, that many more choices. You can choose a boutique hotel. You can look at something beautiful, and you can do it because you don't need more than 25 or 30 rooms to have a wedding, or even 50 rooms to have a wedding. So I think the positive is that we have far more choices today in India. And yes, we're all being careful about where we are holding our weddings, and it's become more localized. That's what's happening with the Indian wedding.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that it would give a chance to a lot more Indian properties and more beautiful places, like you mentioned, Havelis and palaces that exist to host weddings, which
Correct.
usually get lost in terms of the room count. What about stuff like social distancing in terms of food? So, you know, people are going to be very particular about how they eat, what they touch. So will a buffet, what's like a buffet style, or will it be, what will really work in this post-COVID wedding?
You know, the last 4 months, the industry and all of us, colleagues, friends, all of us have been talking. We've been hand-holding each other. We've been talking to our partners, to our suppliers, and of course to our catering partners as well. And the one thing that's come out, the buffet is out. Definitely. Nobody is going to have a buffet dinner or a buffet style wedding, because buffet means lines. Even if you do distancing, you're putting, so pre-plated food is going to be the new way forward. So you will have sit down tables. So the whole system of having a sit down dinner may be a better prospect, because you get pre-plated food. So at a certain wedding, I believe you got a choice on a menu of saying whether you wanted a thali meal or you wanted a Western meal, and in a Western you got a choice. So it came beautifully pre-plated for you and was served to you, and you were only, instead of 8 people on a table, you were maximum 4 people on the table. So food has become like that. Morning weddings that are happening, where, you know, they don't stay for lunch and they're just there for a snack. People have done some beautiful bamboo baskets with food, or done some amazing packaging where people can take the food back with them. You know, even that has been happening. So food is going through a lot of changes, and some amazing design oriented things are coming forth, and I think in the coming season everybody will see that.
Yeah, that's actually lovely, because I think people are really adapting with times. To take your food home and then eat it in the safety of your own home is so lovely also.
Yeah.
At least you're able to give your guests something. Of course, I know it's a tough one to ask, because not many weddings must have happened at this point, but any 1 or 2 points that you could share which really makes a small wedding or a small function intimate yet memorable?
You know, all the weddings that we are planning and that we are in the process of planning are all about 50 people. And I know that the brides and grooms are grappling with the whole fact of parents, friends, their friends, and they're trying to keep it small. But I think the most important thing that everybody has to remember, that you have to manage your guest list really well, and you have to have just the ones that are, unfortunately or fortunately, extremely close to you, to be able to do that 50 people number.
Yeah.
So a lot of brides that we are saying to them that, if you want to keep it so intimate, just make sure that when people, of course, sanitization, safety, health, all of that is, and I'll talk about it later. But in terms of a tip for a young couple who's just getting married, if you're getting married at home, my advice to you is just go with something which is so beautiful, which is any local flowers that you can get. You want to do it yourself. There is abundance of beautiful tube roses available. Just fill vases and vases in the house. Every home has vases, has containers. Just fill your entire home with amazing fragrance of tube roses and Rajnikanda, as you call it. And if you really want to DIY it, pick up a beautiful old Banarsi. Your mom must have one. Or you have a sari. Just make a lovely canopy. get married under that, bring in a lot of the greenery, bring in a lot of green plants, and of course, try and put as many lighting fixtures. When I say twinkling lights, you can do diyas, you can do candles, and if you are worried about candles for safety, do the LED candles. They work beautifully. Just light up your entire house, make it look festive. We all have beautiful cushions at home. Throw them around, and let me tell you, nothing fills a room than a room full of friends and family and great music. And it's a recipe for a beautiful wedding. Definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's the old style, where everyone would help out and everyone would put the decor together. So I think that if you were meant to get married now, this is a great way. Thank you for those great tips. Like you mentioned as well about sanitization and safety at this point. What do you think that people will do? Is there anything new and innovative that's come? Like you said, let's not make it look like a hospital, but you still have to be safe. So if you could just touch upon that, are there any mandatory guidelines which need to be followed?
Shan, there are a lot of mandatory guidelines that all of us are doing in the business, and we are actually discussing this as the first point. After we've, when we talk to our clients, we say if it's a venue, then the venue and us have already have many discussions on what the venue is doing. For example, when you are driving into a venue today, there will be no valet parking. So you are actually going to park your own cars and probably put your keys in a brown paper bag, which they will leave for you, and you can pick them up. And they have somebody who's actually spraying the cars because they're being parked somewhere, contactless. When you're walking into a venue, they're creating these sanitized tunnels that you're walking through. Lots of venues are saying at the mandap, they're asking people to take off their shoes, which they do in any case, but you're giving them what you call home slippers, home shoes that you can walk into, because those are comfortable to be in. Of course, the sanitizer, the temperature check, all that is happening. But even at home, we're doing a home wedding where we've actually going to create a space where people actually come and take their shoes off, and some women are uncomfortable, they want to be, we're actually giving them slippers where they can walk in. We're making sure that there is enough distancing within the venue itself. We're making sure that not too many people are there within the mandap area. Now, for example, when you're getting married, it's the parents, the couple. So they have actually been together. So the couple and the parents and the bride are living in one home. The boy and are living in one home. And the only one who's really coming in is the priest, the panditji. So we're actually putting strict guidelines to the panditji. He's going to be tested. He's got to have COVID negative. They've got to be, we've got to make sure that his shoes are kept outside. Any samagri that he brings in is completely sanitized. In fact, we are providing everything so that it all comes in sanitized bags. And, we open it there and then. We're insisting that they wear gloves. But for the time they're setting up, once the mandap is set, then people are sitting at a distance. Nobody is really around the mandap. You're viewing the wedding from a distance. So yeah, lots and lots of checks are happening. Once the setup is done, there is a team that comes in completely in PP kits and stuff. They wipe all the furniture, clean everything. They sanitize, they spray. And for 3 hours, nobody can be allowed to come inside the venue. And the venue is only opened when the first guests come in. So they're walking into a completely safe and sanitized environment. Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of work actually. Even if you're just doing a 50 people function, like you mentioned, even giving the samagri stuff in the little bags, that's a lot of attention to detail.
It's a learning curve, not just for us, it's a learning curve for the entire industry. And we all, between hotels and, hospitality teams and other wedding planners, we've exchanged so much that we've got, or anything that we've learned from our friends out there in the West. So there's been a lot of to and fro exchange of information. And we have, kind of made mandatory guidelines for everybody. And luckily, all of us are on the same page, and so are the venues.
That's amazing. I want to ask you a little bit about wedding vendors. A lot of people, so for example, gifting, I know a lot of people that wait for the wedding season and for Raksha Bandhan now, then probably Diwali, which is coming up. So, we're in that business as well. So, what are your thoughts on this? Is there any way, because no one's really buying gifts at this point. So how's that part of the industry?
You know what? I had said this actually in March, April, but I thought that the gifting industry will pick up. Because the one thing that you can do, you know, I know that all the vendors are suffering. I know for a fact that our entire industry is really in a bad state. And it's so sad that we're not looked upon. We keep talking about it as an industry, but not that anybody in the government is really looking at us as an industry. And we employ millions and millions of people. You know, I mean, there are so many people who are involved in the wedding and the entertainment industry, artists, whether it's fabric people, whether it's the vegetable seller, whether it's the guy who sells plywood. I mean, anybody, any artist, any metal worker, florist, everybody is really suffering. You know, so we're really hoping we can, you know, come back in some way and we can, you know, all start doing weddings. But as far as the gifting industry is concerned, that was one thing I thought that would pick up. You may not see it now, but I think straight after Shraddh, I think there will be a pickup because people are doing weddings for 50 people. Yeah. So a lot of their gifts will be very personalized. That's one part of it. Secondly, all the people that they could not invite, I'm sure they will send them a gift saying, you know, it's limited, but we just wanted you to be a part of our, day. And here is something just to remind you. So I think gifting is still going to be there and you'll see a change in it post September. Definitely.
Yeah, it's good to see a lot of wedding vendors here. There's gifting and people who do, you know, photography, decor, all saying with a thumbs up to your answer, because I really think this gives everyone hope that, you know, it can revive sooner or later, and hopefully this year itself. I do want to ask you one very dreary question, but more about people being cost conscious post COVID, because I can already see in terms of our exhibitions and stuff that we do, people aren't going to spend right now. But do you think there will be people, you know, spending much less than they probably were last year?
So, you know, the three kind of few trends that I see coming through post COVID, I'm sure about that intimate weddings are here to stay. People are going to be talking about sustainability. They're going to be talking about their carbon footprint. They're going to be conscious of their environment, and there's going to be mindful spending. That's going to be definitely there. And people have realized that they can survive with little today. And the spending patterns are going to change. The spending patterns are definitely going to change. People are going to be mindful of what they spend. But this is also very personal, Shan. It's about, like, I'm dealing with two brides. One bride is saying sustainable. I don't think sustainable is minimalistic. I want to clarify that completely.
It's not
at all. Yeah. So she's saying, when she's saying sustainable, she's actually talking minimalistic. So I had to, So minimalistic wedding in terms of decor, but she wants family, planning, food, all of that is happening. And then I have another bride who says, you know what, I'm getting married. And I know it's only 50 people, but what the hell? I want to make sure that everything at my wedding is absolutely fabulous. I want to make it very special. I want to make it very personalized. I want the quality levels to be so high. So she said, if the cushions that I'm using at the wedding are beautifully done, I'll take them home and I'll use them in my new home. But I want to spend on that fabulous cushion, and I want to make sure that the flowers are pretty and I can give it and my friends can take them away. So I'm balancing two kinds of brides, but as you said, in the future, mindful spending is going to be the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question here from Lavish who says, do you think lavish weddings still would be preferable, or should we prepare ourselves with smaller weddings?
I think for the next year or so, we should prepare ourselves with a smaller number. Yeah. Once the vaccine is out, we are Indians. We will celebrate to the fullest, absolutely. If the vaccine is out and we are comfortable and the fear factor is not there, the lavish weddings will be back. But I think there is a new generation that is now looking at it differently. The weddings will be lavish, but the numbers may still be small. So I think we'll have to balance that.
Yeah. I want to ask you one last thing before I let you go. Is, we have a lot of entrepreneurs on our platform, people who are starting out and people who are kind of trying to make it on their own, even if they work from home at this point. Any advice that you have, maybe when you started out or something, you'd probably tell me. How is that one step you take in the right direction? Is there anything you did which can help them?
The one thing you shouldn't do that we did, we didn't plan. We just rumbled and rolled and came into what we did. So I think the one thing that you guys must do is the one thing I think we all did was we had a vision. I was very clear about what I wanted to do. My vision was very clear. I was actually tunnel vision that way because the goal was clear that if I was going to step into this business, it was going to be a business that I was going to own. It was a business that I was going to try and bring some amount of change in and some amount of method in the madness, because the wedding business was all over the place. So if you're starting out in any business, just make sure that you write your goal down and say, this is what I want to achieve. Once you don't lose sight of that, you will find a path to reach it one way or the other. And if you are in the wedding business, please make sure that you plan what you're going to do. Don't let the environment so much rule you. Try and set the norm yourself. Try and make sure that you are the trend instead of just being a trend follower. I think that is really something that helps. And of course, the third thing is please know your subject really well. Please make sure you have skilled people around you, and even people who are probably better than you in any particular field. They will only add value to whatever you're doing. Definitely.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how lovely it is to chat with you and have you chatting with me on my show, because you've always been an inspiration, and I love everything you do, including all the weddings. And I know that when a wedding's done by you, it's a class apart. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Shan. Love you. Thanks so much for
Thank
this.
you. See
Bye-bye.
you soon.
Bye. Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.